Hello and welcome to the North Bank podcast with just myself, producer Chris, and home and away Stef. Hello, mate.
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Merry Crimbo and all that in our sort of post-festive haze. Holly can't be with us. He's away with family, so we wish him and family well, and we'll see him soon. I'll get straight into it because yesterday was the home game against Ipswich, and you were our only representative at that game, Stef.
Yep.
I just want to touch on my kind of experience of the game because I managed to watch like the last 20 minutes and it was just about the time that Gabriel missed that sitter at the far post, which sent me into a sort of tailspin of dread of thinking, oh God, it's going to be one of those, it's 1-0. They're going to get a scabby equaliser towards the end. I mean, it obviously didn't play out that way, but they seemed to, from what I could see, up the pace a bit. And I imagine they were delighted with 1-0 as it stood at, heading towards the end of the game. So it'd be good to get your kind of overall takeaway before we sort of dive into the team and stuff.
Well, overall takeaway, I think it is coloured by what happened the day before. So I really quite enjoyed my Boxing Day. I would have preferred to have gone to an Arsenal game on Boxing Day because I do enjoy that kind of ritual. But, sat on the sofa watching Man City drop yet more points at home to Everton, which, as we know, can be done. Then, funnily enough, my best friend was round for Christmas, and he is a Tottenham fan. He's a nice guy. They are out there, nice Tottenham fans. But obviously, he comes down in his shirt, all excited to watch Tottenham v Forest, and they lost that. So I thought, oh, this is getting better and better. Only to then watch Man United really struggle against Wolves. And I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to push my luck. I'll leave the Leicester-Liverpool game. So, after that, therefore, any result, 3 points was what mattered against Ipswich. And we got it. Yeah. I think I posted out on our socials that as much as getting the 3 points, moving up to second, remaining unbeaten at home, and unbeaten in 11 in all competitions, and yet it somehow doesn't feel like that. There's a lack of, we're sort of stuttering into this good form rather than rolling into it. So good win, necessary win, but we've got a few things to look at moving forward.
There's a couple of things at play there, isn't there? Is that Liverpool obviously being the pace setters that they are, and also us not feeling like we've found a settled 11, and of course now the Saka injury has thrown another spanner in the works. So we'll come to that in a bit. Holly just mentioned, exactly as you said, summed it up, a win is a win.
Yeah.
That's kind of how he feels. And of course, the performance wasn't dazzling, but the 3 points were crucial. The team selection, none of us would be surprised by the team selection.
No.
For me, having Rice at 6 made a bit more sense because he's more mobile than Partey, but also because Ipswich probably weren't going to be as adventurous as Palace coming to us. I think Palace surprised us a bit with the way they came at us and kind of exposed our midfield with Havertz at the left 8. What did you think?
Yeah, totally not surprised. I know Holly was clamouring for Nwaneri, and Holly's right in the sense that this was the low risk game to try Nwaneri, and I totally understand that. But I think when we're predicting a lineup, that mindset of Arteta is about, trying to use his best, in inverted commas, players in order to get the result first, really. So I wasn't at all shocked. Jesus, for the form that he's hit in those recent games, why not capitalise on that a little bit more? I'm not sure about Havertz dropping into the midfield. And I know a friend of mine, I was at the game with Pete, is convinced that we're a better team when Partey and Rice are together in midfield. Or Rice and Marino perhaps are, rather than Havertz, who is this kind of hybrid, forward midfielder. But totally not a surprise. That said, I mean, the Palace game was an interesting one because they kind of sucker punched us at the home game with that first attack and got the early goal, but then didn't really lay much of a glove on us sort of after that, really. I know Eddie scored a really good header as a bit of a consolation, but the pattern is very true of what we've seen in a lot of Arsenal games, where it's like we're trying to choke the life out of the opposition and give them absolutely zero chances, which we are absolutely amazing at. But at what cost? Do we lose something in the front line? Because the other two games where we've scored a lot of goals, so you're looking at West Ham away and you're looking at Palace away as well, well, they're actually games where we've also given up quite a few chances as well. There was a few stats doing the rounds on social media about XG conceded. And yeah, I mean, what was it? Yesterday's game against Ipswich, Fulham and Everton are three of the lowest accumulated, sort of chances that the opposition have been given, which shows our defensive prowess and our ability to stop other teams. And yet the highest ones in this run of form have been West Ham and Palace, where we've scored a bag full of goals, but they've got the odd one as well. So it's a real quandary and the balance isn't quite there. Do we double down on that defence, or do we perhaps release the shackles a little bit?
Well, I was just going to say, and it's probably an easy question to answer, but which do you think Mikel prefers? The 1-0 against Ipswich where he gives up few chances, or the lack of control, inverted commas, that we experienced at Palace? The stats bore that out. It's this possession thing again, which we've talked about loads. 80%, I think it was, at the half-hour mark against Ipswich. I mean, he'll be delighted with the fact that we're controlling the game, but we all know that means nothing unless you're putting it in the net. So otherwise, as I wasn't able to watch the game, can you just talk us through the sort of main points of the first half and what sort of stuck out for you?
I mean, to be honest, not a huge amount did. It was a game, first and second half of relatively few incidents, which was a pity. I took my nephew to his first game at the Emirates, and he had an amazing time. He's 10 years old, so he's kind of like, just bright-eyed about the whole sort of situation. But, as a spectacle, the game did lack a lot of clear sort of cut chances. I think in the first half, I suppose it ultimately comes down to the goal, because, like you said, yes, we had a lot of possession, but a lot of it was fairly benign. That's the word we're always using about it. It was in that arc of frustration, and it was kind of slow, if we're being, brutally honest. And what was good about the goal was, all of a sudden there was an injection of pace into all the different elements of it. Whether it was Martinelli's work in the build-up, whether it was Trossard taking on his man, and even the way he put the ball in. So low at speed, because a lot of the corners and other crosses seem to be lofted and chipped in, and probably easier for the defenders to read. I know we've got the height and we are able to win our duels and combat the opposition for those things, but at the same time as well, I know I'd much prefer that to defend than something zipped across. But Trossard did zip it across, and it was the speed of Havertz's thought that beat the defender. It wasn't his speed across the ground particularly. He just anticipated it first, and then finished rather neatly into the goal, and that put us one up. That settled everyone sort of nicely, and we created the odd bit, but it didn't really sort of kick on from there really. And even ultimately up to about the end of the first half, there was a little bit of frustration in the crowd. And it was just like that. It wasn't frustration that, we were playing badly, or that, we felt like we were gifting Ipswich too many chances. It's because we all know it just takes one. Yep. It takes one little error. It takes one little moment of giving the referee the opportunity to give a foul away or something like that. And all of a sudden, rather than looking at, a slight win, you might have dropped 2 points, and every point is just worth so much at the moment. Yep. It's we're going to have to eke it out for the next few weeks.
There was a moment towards the end when a ball was rifled into the box, and all the defenders, all our players were doing that arms behind the back thing that you do nowadays, because you obviously can't leave your arms lying around. And it hit, I think, Havertz's arse and went out, and they were all screaming for a penalty. And it was a moment where it was, they're going to VAR this. And I was thinking, please, exactly as you've just said, it's going to be one of those kind of ridiculous decisions that throws it. And I think to sort of build on what you said, normally if we get an early goal, the game state changes slightly and then we can turn the screw. And that's I think where the frustration came from was like, we've got this lead, why aren't we building on it? And I think it's because Ipswich probably anticipated, look, if we're 1-0 down after half an hour, 60 minutes, great. We'll just keep our shape, stay compact, because we'll get a draw and we'll be happy with a draw. And I think that was their kind of mentality, was there's no need to go gung-ho and change the game plan if you're 1 down. So for me, that's how it felt. McKenna didn't really want to change too much until he made those I think it was a triple substitution.
Yeah.
And I think he took Delap off, didn't he?
Yes.
But just freshening up the front line, and they did have a bit more zip about them. So yeah, luckily we got through that. I think the other thing that we've got to mention, first game without Saka. Mm-hmm. How did you think we coped in his absence? And it's hard to say on one game, but...
Yeah, I think it wasn't too bad. And I think a lot of positivity was felt when Martinelli made the switch to the right against Palace. But in the heat of the moment, that can sort of lift a player, possibly, and a team to rally when someone who is so talismanic like Saka is, drops out. But when you have prepared and then face an opposition from the start, it kind of shows. I don't know if Martinelli did anything better or worse than he normally does on the left for us, to be honest. But it will take maybe some time to develop some of those relationships that they have, because we've come away from a game against a team who will be in a relegation battle, as organised and as determined as they were. The difference was in those moments where they had a moment that they could perhaps capitalise on a turnover of possession. You could just see that the quality wasn't there. That final ball to progress up the pitch or capitalise on it just wasn't as high. But in terms of effort and organisation and a kind of discipline that they had, hats off to them. I thought they were very good value for restricting us in the way that they did. There was something I noticed, that if we went round the outside and put in a cross, which is a fairly standard issue, then they could deal with that. But there was a definite kind of determination that if we did go narrow, there was just bodies everywhere. They really closed ranks very well and cut off any potential chances that we might create. So the most glaring one that I can think of, because it was down our end in the second half, was when Odegaard went on a fairly slaloming kind of run, because he and Declan Rice at different points, it looked like they were basically going, right, we need to grab the game here and do something. So Rice had a bit of a run that I think ended up in winning a corner, and Odegaard had a run where he did get a shot away, but again, it was blocked. Had about 2 or 3 players to kind of go through. And that's the kind of chances that we're going to be left with. What would I prefer? How do we circumvent that? Don't know. But a few more shots from range wouldn't necessarily hurt. A few more diagonals to someone perhaps coming in round towards the far post might help. But again, that anticipation, those relationships, hopefully might develop in 2 or 3 games. We'll see how we go. I know we'll get on to Brentford, but being away from home next time might actually help us in some way with a clearer view of what we've got to do, because we can go there and we can be the away side for a bit. We don't have to press and push forward like we did or felt obliged to at home against Ipswich. So yeah, it was okay, but just okay. Our best players in the game for me were our fullbacks. Timber just still looks brilliant, and Lewis Skelly, he just looks like he's slotted straight in, and I think he even won the man of the match vote on for Arsenal Online. So that sort of shows how everyone's recognising what he's doing.
Mikel certainly did in the post-match little presser they did on the pitch, saying how mature he was for his years. And I liked, again, it was something that I saw in the brief time that I had watching the game, was him having a little to do with Calvin Phillips, just proving that he's just not there to hide at all, is he? He's just so front and centre, the confidence and obviously the ability, but the mentality, that is crucial at this level. So yeah, more of that, please, from him. Just very quickly on Saka as well, because I think in the last pod we didn't know how long, the extent of his injury and how long he'd be out 4. So it's suggested because he's just had an operation, and we don't know, again, how major or minor, whether, stitched his leg back on or whatever, how long he'll be out for. But, I mean, including rehab, it's probably going to be 2.5, 3 months even, I would imagine. The thing that would worry me is the lack of, genuine forwards that we have in terms of the permutations that we can achieve, especially with Sterling out as well. So in the next pod, we're going to look at potential January signings. I know you don't particularly like the speculation side of it, but we do need to kind of address it, I think, in terms of...
I don't like the speculation and trying to pretend that we know that a deal is in the offing, but I think there is a point, and I totally accept that people said we perhaps should have bolstered a little bit in the summer in the front line. Maybe Sterling was a very kind of opportunistic way of trying to deal with that. But ultimately now, the way it's fallen with Saka's injury, and even just being without Odegaard for so long as we did, shows that we may need... It might be a case of strengthening numbers. I'm all for slimming down the squad to a point so that you've got a higher level of quality throughout. But ultimately, when we're only 1 or 2 more injuries away from some real youngsters coming in, unless they are like Nwaneri and Miles Skelly, it could all of a sudden start to unravel. So, as much as we should have addressed it in the summer, I think January... something needs to happen.
Yeah, and we were in for frontline players in the summer, and it never worked out. So it does show there is an intent to strengthen, and we can look at the profiles as well when we do that pod in the new year, in terms of exactly what type of player we need. All right, look, we'll leave Ipswich, the tractor boys sent back to Suffolk up the road from you to plough another field or some such
good
metaphor. Thank
very
you.
Good.
Back in a sec for a look at Brentford away. Welcome back to the second half, where we're going to have a look at Brentford away, which is on the 1st of January, which is kind in the sense that we get a few days break, more so than any other teams who are playing tomorrow and the day after, I think.
Right. So, as someone who is going to the Brentford game, okay, I'd just like to say my little piece about scheduling.
Oh, do.
Because, okay, the Boxing Day and then a couple of games after, it's like your Saturday, Sunday, but it just sort of, it's whenever Boxing Day falls. That's fine. So we've had a Saturday today as we record where there's no football. Again, not the end of the world. It's Christmas, veg around. On New Year's. So everyone again is playing tomorrow. And I think there might be a game or two on Monday. And then Tuesday, New Year's Eve, completely free, no football. But then Brentford Arsenal saved till New Year's Day. Don't get it. Makes no sense. And if you speak to me as someone who's going to go to the game and provide the atmosphere that sells everything on TV so well, I'll tell you what I'd much rather do. Go out on New Year's Eve and get back late than drag myself out of bed on New Year's Day to get to the game. Now, I'm going to do that because that's what I do. I follow my football club up and down the land and do whatever. But I assumed that there would be games on New Year's Eve, and we just happened to sort of fall on that day. When I saw the gap, it all of a sudden made me really annoyed. And I know it's probably a bit petty, but I just thought... What? Why? Brentford played yesterday like we did. It's totally arbitrary, and all I could think was that I think it's on TNT, the game. They probably thought, well, no one's going to be watching sort of tea time on New Year's Eve, whereas if we do the New Year's Day game, we've got like a captive audience. Everyone's sat around in their PJs and their onesies. Basically, they're just they'll stick the football on, won't they? So, enjoy that, everyone who's going to be watching at home. I'll be dragging my backside to West London.
Well, you answered your own question, because it is the TV companies that are governing all this, isn't it? And they're anticipating another jig on the touchline from Gary Neville, aren't they? Like three seasons ago when they beat us 2-0, or whoever the TNT equivalent of Gary Neville is. So I feel for you, mate. But,
I don't think Brentford will be quite the surprise package they were then.
No. On that, they have the best joint home record, equal to Liverpool, 7 wins, 1 draw, 1 defeat. And that defeat was, I think, their most recent home game, which I suppose in a way bodes well in terms of just making them feel a bit more vulnerable. I'm reaching here, but
and it was against Forest, who we seem to take care of pretty well, albeit at our place.
I wish it worked like that. I wish
no,
it was
it absolutely doesn't. I know.
I mean, I look at them as well, and I think of late Henry Arsenal, where because he was clearly the best player, we were funneling through him quite a lot. And do you remember he was giving those sort of scowls to all the younger players if they didn't pass to him? And that was kind of the Tony effect I felt with Brentford for a while, was that he was clearly the main man up front, and they seemed to be more liberated as a team. I've spoken to Brentford fans about this, and they were all, in accord with this idea that they are more of a team now. Wissa Buemu leading the line in his absence, arguably a better football team. So yeah, what's your kind of initial feeling on the game?
Well, my worry is about it's like a rock meeting a hard place, because we are this, strangulation of a team where it's low chances, low amount of goals, all about control. So, we're involved in very low scoring, very low XG kind of games. And Brentford's games at their stadium have seen the most goals, or they certainly had up to a point when I last sort of heard that stat. So it's going to be one or the other, but surely it will either be a really tight affair where we are able to establish our Hitchcockian kind of tight grip on the game, or it's going to be an absolute barnstormer, like basketball end to end. Just it's
going to be 0-0, folks.
Don't know if I'd take that at the minute.
Yeah, well, like you said earlier, the fact that we're the away team and Brentford do have this good record at home and clearly like to go at the opposition with the home advantage. Holly feels this as well. They'll come at us. I'll just read what Holly has suggested for this game. It will be tough, but Brentford won't be content to sit low for the entire game. They'll come at us and we'll take advantage. Positive as ever. That said, not sure where our goals are coming from. Probably set piece FC. Okay. Let's have a look at his team prediction first. We've got Raya in goal, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, and then we've got Partey, Rice, Ødegaard. Well, I think he means Ødegaard on the right.
Yeah.
Jesus, Havertz, Martinelli. And from the way he's written it, I'm assuming Martinelli will be back to the left wing. There you go. Let's have yours.
I've got exactly the same team. I think Calafiori was on the bench, and therefore you assume is good enough. And if so, bring in a slightly more combative, taller, frankly, forward. And also, that rotation could be fine for Lewis Skelly. He can come into the next game, which I believe is Brighton away as well. Another tough game, but why not use the squad if it's available? I'd like to see Partey and Rice in the midfield. I just think a bit more strength, a bit more protection, I think, for the back four. If Brighton are a team to like to have a go, then that would be fine. Front line, yeah. I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? I mean, Jesus seems to be starting well, full of energy. Whether I'd put him on the right, I don't know. I think if Saka's going to be out relatively long term, I'd be tempted to keep Martinelli on the right as a kind of message to him to say,
to build the relationship.
Yours now. Yeah, you Timber, Ødegaard, work it out. Go do what you need to do. You'll have to be switched on defensively, but also give them something to think about. Push them back. If they are gung-ho, like Holly said they might be, and come at us, well, then there should be more space for Martinelli to run in behind. So I think I'd be tempted to keep Martinelli on the right. And then ultimately the left can still kind of work itself out with Jesus, with Trossard possibly. But I did plump for Jesus just because of the form he's hopefully carrying. Yeah. And then Havertz, I just think as a centre forward, just makes a little bit more sense. Yeah.
No, that's a good call. And I say that because that's exactly what I would do in the front line. I would put Martinelli, I'd keep him on the right to try and build that relationship. I think that's crucial because if it's for 2-3 months. The only difference I've got as a starting 11 is MLS keeping his left fullback berth. And I'm saying MLS just to annoy Holly.
And what it's a mark of how the kid is doing, because like I don't bat an eyelid at that. I just don't, it's not even a risk, is it? It's just
Not
consistency, continuity.
Yeah. And I think Calafiori will get time in this game. That's the way I see it, is he'll start with Miles Lewis-Skelly, and then Calafiori will come on like the hour or so, 70-minute mark. That's the way I would anticipate it going. And then in the midfield, as you said, Rice is the kind of left 8, but when we defend, he's all over the place, as we know, and with Partey, and Partey's that not isolated in the sense that he was in the Palace game. Score predictions. Holly's prediction is for a 2-1 win, and it's the obligatory one to them, isn't it?
Yeah.
From Holly. Yourself?
I said it would be one or the other. Either we'll strangle the game and it will be very low scoring, or, as has been the way for Brentford at home, it will be a barnstormer. And because I'm going and it's New Year's Day and I feel like I want to justify it, I'm going barnstormer 3-3.
Oh. So you're calling the draw, and you're kind of with your lucky rabbit foot in your pocket type thing, is it? Because whenever you predict a draw, we seem to win. Yeah, mine is 2-0. And I don't want to give them a sniff. I want us to get an early goal, strangle the life out of them, and then get the killer and see it out for the sake of my heart, if nothing else.
Well, I hope you're right.
So do I, mate. There's another thing to touch on before we go, which is this is 5 years of Mikel. His first game was Bournemouth away, Boxing Day 2019, a 1-1 draw. And our little kind of quiz today for you, matey, I'm going to put you on the spot, is to try and name the team on that day.
Who's it again, sorry?
Bournemouth away, Boxing Day 2019.
Boxing Day 2019. Okay. Well, the goalkeeper's one or the other, so I'm going to say Leno.
Yes.
Okay, Leno in goal. Kolasinac.
Nope.
No. Ooh. Monreal wasn't still there, was he?
No, sadly not.
So then it will probably be someone like Saka.
Saka was left back, yep.
Left back. Maitland-Niles right back.
Yep.
Oh, God. Socrates.
Yes.
Mustafi.
No.
Ooh, who was the other centre back? Wouldn't be Callum Chambers, would it?
No.
Might have to come back to that one. Granit Xhaka, midfield.
Yep.
With, who would have been in midfield at that point? Front line would be someone like Aubameyang.
Yep.
Lacazette.
Yep.
Pepe.
No, he came on as a sub, but I'm after the starting 11.
Okay.
Doing very well.
Guendouzi.
No.
Oh, God.
Someone who looked like him. Torreira, well done. Torreira. Someone who looked like Guendouzi was our centre-half. Thank you. Okay. David Luiz. So you're missing 2. One's an attacking midfielder. Depending on the set, I think we were 4-2-3-1 in those days.
Aaron Ramsey.
No.
I might need a clue.
One of them is still on the books, but he's on loan.
Reece Nelson.
Yes.
Ooh.
And then the last one, again, attack in the 4-2-3-1, he was your kind of 10.
So it wouldn't be someone like Eddie Nketiah.
No.
He's just left. Smith Rowe.
He's retired now, and he's beefed up quite considerably.
Ozil.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Because there was a whole saga about him, because he was friends with Ozil. Could he make him work? Or would he call him out? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. The bonus point is to tell me who was in goal for Bournemouth.
What? Neto, who's now our keeper.
No, but you're on the right sort of track. There is an Arsenal connection.
There's an Arsenal connection.
Pretty strong Arsenal connection.
To a Bournemouth keeper. So it wouldn't be Emi Martinez?
No.
David Raya?
No.
Aaron Ramsdale.
Thank you.
Okay, of course. Yeah, he had a relegation, didn't he, with Bournemouth and...
About 10 different clubs.
Oh, no, yeah, exactly. And maybe Southampton again this year. Oh, no.
Bless him. But yeah, so that was Bournemouth, yeah. And obviously we've come a long way. Just to reflect very quickly on his record, finished 8th in his first full season, 5th, followed by second and second again last season. Look, he's got us back into the Champions League. There's no doubt about it, really, that he's turned us into, contenders. We're no longer the kind of Bants club. Last season, just some stats here again to please Holly. Most Premier League wins, 28. Most goals, 91. Win percentage, 67.3 is the best ever at Arsenal.
Yeah.
Which is stunning, really, considering we didn't win anything. There was an interview with him on Arsenal.com, the official website, which is quite a good read in terms of his, philosophy looking to the future. But I just want to ask you quickly before we wrap.
Okay.
As a teacher, what do you think his kind of learnings could be to improve us going forward? What does he have to do better?
It's hard to you said about as a teacher to try and think about that as well and recognise it. Sometimes you need to be told these things as well. And I think there's an element of, I work with a guy who's not the most enamoured with Arteta, despite being an Arsenal fan. And he does say one thing that I sort of agree with, because I love Arteta, and because I was famously at the, I wasn't famously at the Palace. I was at the famous Palace game where we were chanting "You're not fit to wear the shirt" to the players, because things have become so toxic and so negative and so, I don't know, just rotten it felt at the time, that to think of what we were then to now, it's hard not to pin that on Arteta's door, really. He's lifted the club to a huge point. But we shouldn't be afraid of change. So I think Edu's gone, so we shouldn't be afraid to try and then go get the best person we can find to fulfill that role. There's coaching staff that are always rumoured to be perhaps coming here, there and everywhere. We talked about Jack Wilshere going off for his opportunity at Norwich. There was rumours about AirPods Albert potentially going elsewhere. And that's fine, they'll all have their own individual sort of careers to think about and ambitions, but we shouldn't be afraid to then sort of regenerate. I don't want a bunch of yes people to come in and then it turn into this, big vanity project for Arteta, because it's not flawless. He is still a novice manager. I think he needs to trust his squad and his players that little bit more. I think sometimes, as we're sort of seeing here, that, look, we've created an absolutely brilliant defence, a team that is so hard to beat. But actually, I'm going to sort of quote, and I apologies if I sort of butcher the line, but Gunnerblog wrote an article for, it's New York Times through The Athletic, and he said, as good or as difficult as Arsenal are to beat, Liverpool at the moment seem the hardest to stop. And that's the thing, isn't it? When City were winning and it was relentless, we referred to them as a machine. They were a relentless machine that kept on winning. Not because they'd always necessarily kept on keeping clean sheets or giving the opposition few opportunities to score, because they kept scoring themselves. You could not stop them scoring. So I feel like that's maybe the next level to go to. Is that in terms of the system we play, or is that the individual players? I don't know. The system sort of is what it is. I quite like the fact the system is quite flexible. So yesterday, Havertz was playing along with Jesus, but it wasn't Havertz as the midfield three, really. It was Havertz and Jesus as two strikers, 4-4-2 or 4-2-4.
Yeah.
That's by the by. I do just think there needs to be perhaps a raising of the attack, maybe, or a variety in the attack. Because at the moment, Liverpool, it's that classic thing. We know what Salah's going to do, but you can't stop him.
Yeah.
Well, we've got that player, but it's Saka. Now he's injured for a long spell. So we address that and we'll see what this season brings. But what I'm also quite pleased with is, given the players' ages and given, the fact that they're probably going to be coming into their peak years within the next year or two, we're still set up for another 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. The only concern is if players think, well, hang on, I've been here for a while now, and I back myself, I'm really good. These are really good players. These are players that have deserved to have won the league. As I know I'm saying that with my Arsenal sort of rose-tinted spectacles on, but they do. We've been pretty much there for 2 years now, if not 3, really. And they do deserve it. But at some point, without that silverware in their hands, they're going to go, right, I can look elsewhere and see what I can do. So let's all make it happen.
There does seem to be the buy-in at the moment, though, from the players, we should say. And they do seem to be on board. It doesn't seem to be a sense that they're all having their heads turned, that, okay, there's always going to be gossip. I embrace that. I love the fact that other clubs are sniffing around our players. Bring it on, because it means that they're valued and that, maybe one day they will move on. But I'm with you. I think that they're all on board at the moment. I think Arteta as well, he has alluded to that kind of evolution in the past as well. And that, we had that kind of frenetic season before last where it was more exciting and he wanted to bring a kind of control to the game. And we got that last season in a more kind of measured way that we played. And I think he will now look to be more efficient up front. I hope so anyway, because we've got the defensive foundation. So he's done all right. So well done, Mickey. Thank you for everything. Bring us some silverware and we'll love you even more.
Absolutely.
We will reconvene post Brentford in 2025.
Woohoo.
Bloody hell.
The future.
Until then, to everyone, thanks for listening. Have a happy new year and we'll catch you then.
Happy New Year. See ya.
The North Bank, an Arsenal podcast. Subscribe, rate and review on your app and find us on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at North Bank Pod. Email hello@thenorthbankafc.com and check out our website, thenorthbankafc.com. Produced by The Podcast Company.
I say to the people that I'm going outside, I'm going to learn, I'm going to get prepared, and hopefully one day I can come back here when I feel that I'm ready to make that step. I have so much respect for this football club that if I wouldn't feel that I'm ready and prepared for this, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair.